Happy Christmas everyone and welcome back to Football Daily, where today we're going to be looking into 10 football matches which you won't believe really happened. Let's get into it. 10. Ajax U12 Winning 51. When growing up and playing youth football, it's not surprising to see some teams reach double figures in goals. Many of you watching this would have been a part of a 10-0 thrashing. What side of it depends on you. But I doubt that there's many who have succumbed to a defeat like this. The Ajax Academy is famed for their young stars who have proved again they are a force to be reckoned with. In an under-12s game against MVV Maastricht, the game didn't just see double figures reached, but a total of 51 goals in the space of an hour. The dominant Dutch side were scoring at a rate of 1 strike every 1 minute and 12 seconds. Before the match, MVV had already lost 13-3 to Brabant and another to Fortuna Sittard by 10-3, so defeat was always on the cards, but not to this level. The game was only 6-aside in small goals, but this feat is still very impressive, and come 2030, we may be seeing these players about yet again. Criticism have been thrown at the manager of the side, stating the young Dutch side lacked any sportsmanship. But we want to know what you guys think. Should this have happened? Should the manager have told these teams to score less? Let us know in the comments below. 9. Sacked for winning. This time of year is prime for manager sackings. We've seen high-profile names like Unai Emery and Maurizio Pochettino fired in the space of just a few days. However, whilst their P45s were predictable due to recent results, this one manager would have been hoping for a pay rise after this win. Invicta Sorio's under-18s had played against Marina Calcio in Italy. After 90 minutes, the game finished 27-0 to Invicta. The game saw two players score 6 goals each, whilst one of their teammates found the back of the net 7 times. Coach Massimiliano Rettini must have been delighted. The same can't be said for President Paolo Brogelli, who upon seeing the results sacked the coach, stating the opponent must always be respected, and that did not happen today. Our coaches have the duty to train young players, but above all, educate them. That did not happen today. It's safe to say a loss was to be expected for Marina. They were at the bottom of the table and facing the league leaders. Nevertheless, sporting director Tibero Patesi complained after the match at how their side had been humiliated in the clash, and that they were plagued with a string of injury problems and were forced to play one of their outfield players in goal. Before we move on to our next section, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell to never miss a video. 8. VAR Mess. The introduction of VAR to the Premier League this season has seen a lot of controversy over the time it takes. Offsides and incorrect decisions being given, but let's just be thankful nothing like this has happened yet. Back in May 2018, Newcastle Jets faced Melbourne Victory in the A-League Grand Final. The two teams had played each other 3 times previous that season, with the Jets winning twice and Melbourne once. As the final played out, a goal was scored in the 9th minute by Melbourne's Kostas Barbarouses from a set piece, becoming the fastest ever goal scored in an A-League Grand Final. This ended up being the only goal in the match, winning Melbourne their 4th championship. VAR was used during the game, however the Football Federation of Australia admitted that the vision feed supplied to VAR crashed 30 seconds before Victory's winning goal. By the time the system was restored, the game had resumed, meaning the decision to allow the goal stood. After the whistle, the FFA released a statement saying, "We are extremely disappointed at the failure of the VAR technology, and we understand the disappointment and frustration of the Newcastle Jets, their fans and indeed all football fans. Not even an apology." 7. The most red cards in one game. South American games are known for their particularly heated moments. Just type in Boca Juniors and River Plate and one of the next terms is fights. But 2 Argentine sides have taken the title of the most intense rivalry back in 2011. This occurred in the 5th tier of Argentine football between rival teams Claypole and Victoriano Arenas. With 2 players already dismissed in the first half, the second half descended into chaos when players went lunging into tackles and there were repeated standoffs between them. It boiled over when a mass brawl erupted, seeing the managers and coaches enter the pitch with their fists flying. Along with the substitutes, some fans of both sides were also seen joining in. Referee Damian Robino wrote in his match report that he saw fit to serve every player with a red card, along with a further 14 people, a mixture of subs and coaches, bringing the total to 36 red cards, the record in a football match. Victoriano Arena's manager Domingo Sanga was quoted as saying, "They wanted to kill me." Meanwhile, his opposite number Sergio Maselli says the referee overreacted to the manic scenes in Buenos Aires. He said most players were trying to separate people. The referee was confused. The match actually finished 2-0 to Claypole, but that didn't really matter in the end, especially when they broke the previous world record, which was held by a 1993 game in Paraguay that saw 20 players sent off. 6. The goal that should have never been. In amateur football, lots of things happen that don't happen in the professional game. For instance, rolling subs, players turning up half-cut, and even goals being given that aren't legitimate. Whilst these may be regular occurrences for the average Joe, in the professional game we expect the best. Back in October 2013, Hoffenheim faced Bayer Leverkusen at the Rhein-Neckar Stadion on a Friday night Bundesliga game, in a fixture which would push people over the line for the goal line technology to be introduced. Leverkusen were 1-0 up in the 68th minute. A Bayer corner was whipped in, meeting Stefan Kessling's head, who'd come across his man at the near post and hit the side netting. He then turned around, hands on his head in disappointment. His teammate Sheeran and the Hoffenheim keeper picking the ball out of the net. The referee Felix Breisch had given the goal. Replays later showed that the ball hit the side netting, but at the very spot where a string had come loose, so it went in from the outside. The referee was later called over to inspect the faulty net, but the goal stood. The game finished 2-1 to Leverkusen, sparking outrage over the fact Hoffenheim should have come away with the draw. With such a high-profile incident, you would have thought that technology would have been introduced the following season, but it wasn't until the 2015-16 campaign when the Hawkeye system was put into place. 5. The Outfield Goalkeeper. One of football's greatest pleasures is seeing outfield players go in goal. Most recently, we saw Kyle Walker in bright pink for City after Edison was injured and substitute Claudio Bravo was sent in for an early bath. One of these rare occasions happened back in 1971. David Webb is a Chelsea legend, having played 230 times for the West London club in 6 years, playing in many positions, mainly right back, but also featuring in central defence and even up front against Ipswich where he netted a hat-trick. The Essex-born player wore every shirt from 1 to 12, except 11 for the Blues, and it was Ipswich again who faced him whilst wearing number 1. The outfield player was actually in between the sticks twice in 1 week. Peter Bonetti, Chelsea's actual number 1, picked up an injury against Coventry City and the defender took his place in goal. Webb performed so well that the reserve goalkeepers John Phillips and Steve Sherwood were unavailable. Phillips was injured and Sherwood was stuck in traffic on the M1. He started the next game. The Englishman was able to keep a clean sheet while seeing out 2-0 victory over Ipswich. The Tractor Boys seem to always be on the end of David Webb's masterclass, as in the return fixture, Webb scored twice whilst outfielding his natural position. 4. Drunk ref. If you watched our previous video on this topic, we mentioned a referee who officiated the game whilst drunk, and somehow we found yet another one. Wolf-Dieter Ahlenfedler was a German referee who took charge over 106 games in the Bundesliga in 1974 to 1988 and was a favourite of the players. When told by former German international Paul Breitner that he's refereeing like an Ahlenfedler replied to Breitner, "Could it be that you are playing like an?" But the German referee is best remembered by fans for the game between Werder Bremen and Hannover 96 in the 74-75 season, when he called for half-time in the 32nd minute instead of the regulation 45. After complaints by players, the officials questioned his assistant, who agreed it was too early to call half-time. He continued the first half but still stopped it a minute early. Later questioning revealed that Ahlenfelder had been drinking during his lunch before the game and felt a little confused. He received a short ban for officiating Bundesliga games but was soon allowed back as referee, eventually being voted the best German football referee and received the Golden Whistle in 1984. If you go to a Werder Bremen club restaurant, you can order an Ahlenfelder, which results in you getting a beer, a German Malteser and some lunch. 3. 2 matches in 1 day. With such busy schedules and lots of domestic and international competitions, players can be playing up to 3 games in just 7 days. This has seen the rise in sports scientists being employed by clubs around the world to make sure their players are able to cope with such vigorous routines. Back in 1987, Mark Hughes had signed for Bayern Munich on loan for the season. However, had a game for his country against Czechoslovakia in Prague for the Euro 88 qualifier on the same day Munich had a cup match too. Hughes said, "I had dinner with Uli Hoeneß, who'd asked me what time the Wales match was. I told him it was around midday and he said, 'That's okay then, you can play in the evening as well.'" Hoeneß watched the 1-1 draw and then flew him to the Bayern game on the other side of the Czech border, where Borussia Mönchengladbach were the opponents. Unfortunately, the Welshman missed the first half due to the plane flying over the ground. However, he made it for the second and came on as a substitute. Bayern won 3-2 in extra time, meaning Hughes played nearly 165 minutes of professional football in less than 24 hours. 2. Armed owner. Owners have always had an impact on what goes down on the pitch, putting their hands into their pockets and forking out millions to sign new players to improve their club. But Ivan Savidis took it one step further. During an intense clash between PAOK and AEK Athens, otherwise known as the double-headed Eagles derby, the Russian PAOK owner stormed onto the pitch after his side had the goal disallowed in the 89th minute to moan to the referee. Now, as unusual as this sight is, it got even more out of hand after it was seen that the 6-year-old was also carrying a gun. The game was subsequently abandoned with only a few minutes left of play. The businessman faced disciplinary action from the football authorities, ordering him to pay €100,000 in fines and has been banned from football stadiums for 3 years. He wasn't the only one to be punished, as his club were also docked 3 points. 1. Drone wars. When Serbia and Albania were both allowed to be put into Group I for the Euro 2016 qualifying, eyebrows were raised. The two countries have strong political disagreements regarding Kosovo, which culminated during the Kosovo War. UEFA defended their decision to keep Albania and Serbia in the same group, claiming that because neither association had requested to be kept separate from each other, nor were there any requests filed after the draw, UEFA did not feel the need to separate the teams. During the qualifier, a drone carrying a banner concerning disputed territory between the two countries were flown into the stadium. After Serbian defender Stefan Mitrovic snatched it down, a brawl ensued involving players, substitutes, stewards and members of the crowd. The match was abandoned after several on and off the field incidents. Serbian fans had chanted "Kill the Albanians" and threw flares and other objects on the pitch. UEFA awarded Serbia a 3-0 win against Albania on the grounds that Albania had been at fault for refusing to resume the match. Serbia was, however, given a 3-point deduction and ordered to play its next 2 home games behind closed doors. In addition, both teams were fined €100,000. So that was 10 matches you won't believe had happened. If you think we've missed any out or have any suggestions, get them down in the comments below. And as always, people, like and subscribe. And I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas. See you guys in the new year.